I still see 449 as most recent.
It's in my feed.
There we go, 450 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't appear instantly to me, I guess. One refresh was good enough.
Took a minute for YouTube to acknowledge it.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty reasonable. We're talking a matter of a couple seconds between when he told us and when we could see it. It was like less than 10 seconds.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to PolyCast episode 450. I am Mega Bears fan, joined as always by Makalua.
Who forgot to grab things and stuff, but hey, hi.
Uh-oh, sounds like she's lacking coffee.
Yeah,
And the me
or
and tea.
caffeine of some sort.
Let's be friends. I can use persuasion by force.
Sounds like he has too much coffee.
No,
Now
it's
send
the
some through the
correct amount.
interwebs.
Persuasion by force is one of the best methods available.
My army's bigger, and I do what I want.
Yeah, but we usually couch that in friendlier language so that people get less upset.
Like, hello, would you like my massive army to come and defend your territory for you?
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, perfect.
Minus the your territory part.
Right, our territory.
Yeah, that's better.
Very friendly.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm treating their land as if it's mine with the same amount of respect. Whee!
So, of course, as is usual, in between, it's always in between when we record, is when patches drop and things like that. Like, I think the announcement came like the week after we recorded. So, uh, welcome to 1.2.5. I think one of the big things for everybody is the new map types and improved map generation. I was looking at the examples they've gotten here. Like the Continents Plus is more like what the original one was, but now they've got a Continents and Islands, a Pangean Islands, and a Pangea Plus. And this looks better because the original map script thing, it was no.
It's a very insert Captain Picard facepalm meme here whenever talking about Civ 7's base maps. But like, yeah, they basically just they drew vertical lines down
Yes.
the map and then split those up into the different continents and the islands. And so you pretty much always knew exactly where to look. Like once users figured out that was the way the maps were generated, we always knew exactly where to look to find distant lands and the
Looked
other continent.
Yeah, look to the left or look to the right to find your distant lands, and that's where the other continent is. But this, like the continents and island ones, does look pretty good. Like it's not a vertical line. The
It's a
islands are a little bit different.
in this case it's more of a diagonal line.
Well, yeah, I was
Yeah.
kind of seeing a diagonal line in there, but it's not as abrupt as it was in the old map gen.
But also there's like islands and in fact some large islands just scattered all around.
That's another
They're
thing.
not
Yeah, the
just
larger ones.
they're not just in the diagonal line. There's some on the east side, there's some on the west side, there's some to the north, some to the south.
Yeah, there's some running in the middle in between the two continents, even. So much
Yeah,
better.
that one, the Continental Islands and Pangean Islands are the most interesting to me because we haven't had scripts that generate similarly to that really in the past. I mean, to a small extent, Pangean Island, like the Big and Small, kind of tried to do that in Civ 4, but not really. It's kind of different.
Yeah, five.
Continents and Islands, best I can tell, is pretty unique. It's like a better version of Civ 4 Fractal.
Yeah, well, 5 and 6 had their own like I think they were called continents. They were either called continents plus or they were called continents and islands. I think it was continents plus, but where they would try to generate islands like around them, but they were always like really small islands, so they didn't quite look
Yeah.
like this. But it was a similar idea. But this looks like it might actually be a better execution.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's at least in that example, there's at least two of the islands that could have a whole sieve on them that you could, looks like you could probably squeeze two or three cities in there,
Or a
cities and towns.
city state empire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess in Civ 7 they probably wouldn't be city states because someone would have to make friends with them first in order to turn them into city states. But
Independent power. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the phrasing.
For islands that size, if they're not isolated, they would probably be a playable position.
I do remember one game of Civ 5 where I found like a large island or tiny continent, depending on how you want to look at it. Basically, something along the lines of a Greenland that had just been completely conquered by a city state. Like, I think there were like three city states that had spawned on that island, and one of the city states had conquered all of the other ones and controlled the entire landmass and basically did look like a full civilization by the time anyone found it because it was across ocean. So nobody found it until, the middle of the game when we all had caravels. And they had a whole little empire, a whole little city state empire going there. It was really neat. It'd be cool to see stuff like that happen more often in Civ games with these city states. Make them look more like dynamic, living parts of the game world instead of just things that are just kind of there.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into the way these are generated now. Or are we shelving that for its complete separate thing? Because I think that builds pretty well into this part of the patch notes, the Saxy Gamer video on the way these maps are generated. Part of the reason Civ 7 is able to do this um, is because they are using a different method than's been used in the past to decide where the tiles go and how the continents are shaped and whatnot.
No, yeah, we could talk about that and just come back to the rest of the patch notes in a minute.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
No argument
So
here.
I only understand the most basics of basics of what he's describing because you've got like it scatters some points and then it creates borders based on like closest points to the dots, and I guess they're building these maps based on how they're distributing those dots initially
Well, first of all, do you
to
remember
generate the
how they
map.
described how the original map generation worked? Maybe that would be good to have that as a point of comparison.
No, I don't think he spent a lot of time on it.
I think he only briefly mentioned it too, but like basically
Yeah.
the way it originally worked was they started with a hex grid, and they just kind of basically just started putting hex tiles on that grid, following certain rules, like almost like if you had a puzzle, of hex pieces out in front of you, and you just kind of start laying them down, and
Oh, that's right. And they had weights for things in addition
right,
to
yeah, yeah,
algorithm.
there'd be weights for how likely it would be to put a particular terrain type or resource or feature or whatever on a particular hex. But the point is they started with hexes and just kind of semi-randomly scattered the hexes around on that map, and that's not the way that the new one works anymore. The new one's using fancy computer science algorithms.
Yeah. And one thing that's interesting to me that the video covered was that you could, in principle, skip using hexes and just use the tiles generated by the nearest closest points uh, that the thing is currently using to generate the hexes.
And in fact, there's games that to get an idea of what that would look like, there are already games on the market that I don't know if their maps are generated in the same way because I've never, they haven't talked about their map generations, or at least I haven't seen them talk about it. But Aura History Untold, would maybe be a very good example of what that might look like in a Civ game. Also, if you've ever played, something like a Total War game, like the way that the individual territories in a Total War game are divided up on the campaign map, it would look more like that, where every particular territory, each cell on the map could be a different and unique size and shape, and it wouldn't all just be uniform hexes.
Another one that uses that, and it's extremely relevant because of how movement and fighting works in it, is the Dominions series. They certainly don't have like uniform hex terrain, and it's to the point where you can be attacked or attack into different provinces from a different number of potential angles based on the shapes of the surrounding terrain. And sometimes that can be as few as one direction possible to attack, or as many as like six. I don't think it goes higher than six. It's either five or six at the top. So that can make a big difference depending on if you're trying to go through a bottleneck or not.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
of the.
just say
Oh, go ahead.
It is in the original Dev Diary entry about this that they were using a fractal noise type of a thing. It would generate a good map, but it was hard to steer it towards specific gameplay type of things. But this new one is called a Voronoi diagram or Voronoi technique, and it has a if you go and look in the dev diary, it does have a really cool thing where it shows how it does generate that. Like it generates some seed points to create like the tectonic plates, and then it slowly starts generating continents around that. But then they can adjust things in it to make it generate differently, which is how we're getting these two newer types. That were especially those two newer types we're talking about. We go, oh, those are really cool. That's also this technique in action, the way it's splitting things up, because it can generate the two big continents, and then it can find these other little points and randomly generate the islands. So it's more distributed, that better look.
And it makes a lot more irregular shapes. So
Yes.
the continents aren't as square or rectangular as they had been previously.
Yeah, because on their example that was in the patch notes, you can see that there's one of them has a bay that it actually almost looks like Hudson Bay up in Canada. Which is a natural irregular shape. And I was going, hey, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, because
On the
they're
page.
trying to simulate plate tectonics before they do the land generation using this technique. That's why we're getting more natural looking stuff.
Right. So yeah, at
I
the
should
very
mention that
high
earlier.
level, like basically they start with very large puzzle pieces, right, to generate like what they consider to be the basic shape or the connections between the different continents or the different plates, continental plates on the map, and then it basically just gets more granular from there. At least that was my recollection, understanding from the video. So if you two got
Yeah,
a different
it's like a
impression,
two-step process because they generate the larger plates first, and then they populate stuff within the context of those. And of course, that's not arbitrary because that's why we see land the way we do on our planet. So it's helpful to to model it, even if it's not an imperfect model, to get terrain that at least looks more like a planet than
right,
just random.
and one of the things, and obviously I haven't seen a very large sample of the maps that would be generated by this script, so I can't say for certain that this would be common, but based on the examples that have been shown and what I've seen from like screenshots that other players have posted online since this patch went live, it is one of the things that this does is it makes it look a little bit more like the different continents would have fit together. Kind of if you imagine a map of the
Mm,
Earth, the way that the east coast of South America fits very nicely into the west coast of Africa, right? Like you see
yeah.
similar kind of things here, where you could almost see where if this were an actual map of an actual world, where the plates, where the continents would have formerly been connected and had previously split apart, or where islands would have broken off from larger continents. Like you can almost see that when looking at these maps, and that's a really cool, very immersive detail. And if the maps are consistently doing that, like it could be that they just picked the best looking maps, right, to show us, and maybe it
Yeah,
doesn't consistently do that. But from what I've seen, if it does consistently do that, that's going to be really cool and really immersive. And even in the Pangea and Islands, it's similar. Like you can almost kind of see from their example where all the little islands might have broken off from that big Pangea continent, hypothetically millions of years ago, as the plates have moved around and shifted.
And both of those two newer ones kind of give me the vibe of an RPG's map. Different RPG. Like if you played a Final Fantasy game, this looks like something they would have drawn together at the same time. It feels more natural, more real. I guess is where I'm trying to go there.
Oh yeah, definitely that Pangea Plus one that's on
Hmm.
the sample for the patch notes. That definitely looks like something that you would see in a Spira or what are the other names of the Final Fantasy continents? There's like a handful of names that they rotate through. I'm the only one I'm thinking of is Spira, but
I don't remember them. It's been a while since I played a Final Fantasy game. I remember Spear. I remember Ivalice from the Tactics series. I don't think
Ivalice,
that's a
that was one
continent
of the other
though.
ones. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that's a continent though. Is it right? It's the world. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So, sometimes they use them kind of interchangeably. Sometimes it's the name of a continent. Sometimes it's the name of the world.
Yeah.
But
I also
anyway,
just like the way the terrain's generating stuff like the way that's positioning landmass and lakes and whatnot. and my combat eye is looking at some of these and thinking it would be interesting to fight in some of these areas because it'd either be annoying or particularly like you'd have to like change what you're doing to a degree to succeed in attacking somebody there. And I
Yeah,
always like stuff like that.
I do have one minor nitpicky complaint, which is that from what I've seen, it looks like the way that shallow waters are generated has not changed much. So it looks like in the examples I've seen that shallow waters are still just there's one hex of shallow waters
Mm.
surrounding the land masses, which means that antiquity era naval units are still going to be extremely restricted in their ability to move because you can't go around another player's. It's you just put one galley right along the coastline and you block everybody's movement because you can't sail around it. And it would have been nice to have places where maybe that shallow water extends out a little bit further,
Yeah, I
or
agree.
now on the upside, it does look like it generates a lot more bays and stuff like that. So there could be, opportunities for naval engagements in shallow waters in bays. But it would be nice if around the outside of the continents there would be a little bit more buffer of shallow water in places, so you could get some more interesting naval action going in antiquity. So maybe that's a note for future fine tuning of the way these maps are generated.
Yeah, even if it's a simplified algorithm, like if there's land within X number of hexes that they would consider linking like there'd be a chance to link it with shallow water.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
one
because
way of doing it.
yeah, and in the Devdar example, it does generate some bays, but then it doesn't fill it out with shallow water, which is kind of a problem. Like there's one that's got a big lake and a couple of tiny islands in it, but that should all be shallow water there. It's not next to a big ocean, and it's not so much of that particular map that it should have any ocean tiles in it. I mean,
Yeah.
even that would happen sometimes in Civ 6, that there would be a body of water and it would be still small, but it would be just big enough to throw a couple of ocean tiles in the middle and going, why?
Right, yeah. This would
Oh
have been a
crap,
really
it's
great
late.
like Mediterranean Sea kind of, feature that, ancient empires could sail across and have fights in there, but it just doesn't work because you still have to sail around.
I do think that's something they could pull off using this algorithm though, just by like stapling an extra step onto it.
Oh,
I
for
bet.
sure. I'm sure if you just tweak some of the parameters for how the shallow water's generated, you could probably accomplish that pretty easily.
Yeah.
If you have more than a few shallow water tiles within X number of tiles, then go ahead and connect shallow water or add more shallow water.
Yeah, and I guess it's you have trade-offs like how complex you want to make it versus what's good enough to not be too taxing on the
Yeah,
generation.
you don't want your end users to be sitting there for an hour waiting for a really cool map to generate. Just want to fit the tiles in.
Yeah. Or if you just like add an extra step that's simple that behaves in predictable ways, but because the land generation isn't predictable, might not always have predictable end products. That's probably good enough, I would say. Especially if you just like throw an RNG element on that, then so like sometimes it generates more shallow water than other times.
It's not
Be pretty
necessarily
hard
a
to
bad thing.
perceive.
And there could also be map setting for stuff like that. Like in the past we've had map options for things like sea level, and how much water to put on a map. I don't think Civ 7 has as many of those features as past games did, but maybe stuff like that could start showing up more in future updates, and we can fine tune these things more to how we want.
Yeah, perhaps. You can always get more granular with that, but eventually it gets absurd. You like tweak every little thing.
Another thing that I would really like to see, and this is something that I've been on a soapbox for this for many years now. Longtime listeners of this show, since I've joined, have probably heard this multiple times. Is I would very much like to see Firaxis make an attempt at putting a Civ map on something that more closely resembles a globe. And I can't say for sure, but this new map generation technique makes it look like that could possibly be a lot more possible, especially if they, as we mentioned before, if they don't go through the process of then mapping the tiles to hexes. Like if they just make a map where the individual cells can just be different shapes and sizes, uh, then that's a heck of a lot easier to put on a spherical surface, because you don't have to worry about whether everything, because hexes I don't think fit perfectly around a sphere. You have to have like little pieces in between some of them, uh, to fill in some of the dead space. But if you're not restricted to every tile being a hex, then suddenly there's a lot more options for how the map can be shaped. And
Yeah. It becomes possible to fit things in without like creating awkward gaps in the hexes because there aren't. You can just like make some provinces a little bigger or some tiles a little bigger, and then it fits.
right, yeah, and it doesn't have to break up an otherwise perfect, hex grid, and you don't have to have special rules for, oh, how do we handle those like weird in between places? Like, are they all impassable, or whatever? You don't have to worry about those constraints.
Yeah, and actually you can make the minions maps uh, rotatable, both north, south, and east, west. So you can like march from the North Pole to the South Pole and then loop back around, so to speak.
Yeah, I just really missed that feature in Civ 4 where you could zoom out and it would wrap the map on like a little globe. That was a cool feature.
Yeah, I mean, they took some liberties with what exactly happened at some particular jump points there.
Yeah, for sure. Like the game wasn't playable in that globe view. It was just
But it
a
was
fun
cool,
little
yes.
aesthetic thing where, yeah, you can zoom out and it looks like an actual world. If I remember correctly, I think they even put like clouds and stuff on it. Maybe, maybe not. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played Civ 4.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in principle, if you use a generation technique like this, you could make the map playable in globe view, with the caveat that if you just zoom out, you won't be able to see what you're doing.
Right.
So how
Well,
beneficial that is questionable. But
what I'm talking about is just having a map where it is just on a sphere and there's never a point where you zoom in and it rolls it out onto a flat plane. Like it would just be a matter of
yeah, no, I agree.
rotating
That's
a
what I was
sphere.
getting at. That's what I was getting at.
And I have played games that have done that before. They weren't 4X games, but one game that comes to mind in particular was a game called Imagine Earth, which is like a colony builder, city builder kind of thing, where you're building colonies on distant worlds, and they're little, toy worlds, kind of like the scaling is it makes them really small, kind of like the planets in like Outer Wilds, but it was tessellated with triangles instead of hexes, so it fit onto an actual sphere. So you would rotate the sphere around and could put farms or whatever on tiles anywhere on the sphere, and it'd be really cool to have like a Civ game that kind of looks like that.
Hell, we're inching closer to it. I don't think you could do that into an existing Civ game. Like they'd probably have to do that for the next release, but
And it would also look
should
really
be on the
cool,
radar.
and it would probably also look really cool in VR.
Oh yeah, VR exists.
A little better than our game table that currently exists.
Yeah, yeah. The games I play wouldn't make sense to put into VR right now, but that's true. It does have some reasonable applications already. But the more games can do things like this, the more viable it becomes, I guess. Really though, I just think the technology needs more interface than is available at the moment.
I saw someone or something, an advertisement recently for like foot controllers that you like put on your ankles for VR games. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be for like motion controls for simulated walking, or like for playing fighting games and like being able to kick or something, but
Yeah, the fighting game thing one seems more like that because they have other ways to make you move, like you tilt the controller forward to go forward, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
Problem
mean
with
we
that is
have.
like it's still you can't get anywhere near one-to-one translation of movement just from a practical perspective. Although, I mean, yeah, when you're playing games, your feet aren't necessarily doing anything, so you could always just hook something up, and you got extra buttons you can press, basically.
Until we all evolve back into monkeys with really flexible toes and pushing buttons and holding controllers.
I mean, it's pretty easy to just press something with your big toe,
Yeah,
and I could
that's
see
pretty much
like,
the only toe though.
uh, I could probably manage pinky too. The middle ones are harder. I don't think I could easily, at least not right now. Maybe with practice, who knows? But right now, I could use big and pinky toes to press buttons, and not the ones in the middle. And then you could just use like the balls of your feet and heels as well.
Or they could actually implement that April Fool's joke from back when Civ 5 was released, where they had the fighting game, right? But
Oh yeah,
it can be in VR. So when you declare war on Shaka or Montezuma or whoever, you can just kick him in the face.
yes.
That's a
With the
freebie for
impressive
Axis.
flexibility of kicking someone in the face
Yeah,
from my chair.
I'm giving you that one as a freebie for Axis. You don't have to give me a nickel for every time a player kicks Montezuma or Shaka in the face in VR. I'll let you have this one.
Yeah, you just get more buttons. It's good.
Well, now that you've got better maps, it's a little easier to manage your cities. They have changed up the interface for that. It's changes they've production menu is now going to show you base yields, your adjacency opportunities, and warehouse impacts up front. I think there were some mods that were doing this already, which is probably where they're going. Oh yeah, everybody's running these. Maybe we should integrate a similar function. Uh, Building placement's going to have some new yield indicators. They've revamped their building slot icons, so it's not just the menus dropping down. There's actual little changes. Uh, Pointing out your feature tiles. Similar thing for growth events, and the before and after previews to help you decide between if you're going to do an improvement or do specialists.
These are all strictly good.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, I don't think the UI is there yet, but this is again a significant improvement.
this is the me and team's favorite topic: UI upgrades.
Yeah, but keep in mind that most of my complaints historically were not on the presentation side, but just on the number of inputs it takes to play the game.
Yeah, which
Yeah, everything here.
this may not have
Now,
changed much.
well, it does indirectly because you can now access information
Mhm.
without spending inputs to look up the consequences of your choices. You can see it at at the decision point. That is actually a significant improvement to number of inputs, especially if you don't have the game committed to memory already. So this is great for people who are learning the game, and it's still useful if you're pretty experienced with the game, especially with
Yeah,
it
because
showing you the consequences of your changing on the spot, so you don't have to think about that or calculate that.
yeah, and if you decide to roll random, you get a civ you haven't played before, and you may not be as familiar with them. So then now here you are in this tooltip. So here's all the things, these little differences if you build this or you build that. So it's all right there in
Yeah,
front of
that's
you.
true too. So yeah, it does actually reduce the inputs to a degree, even if it doesn't do so directly. Yeah, I just see it as strict positive. I would like to
Yeah,
see also like general tasks in the game be cleaner, but this is good. Like I have nothing bad to say about this. This made the game better.
yeah, because you can definitely see that difference in the before and after pictures. Now all of them have, like when it's showing the two things you could build, it has everything that it's going to do, and then the tooltip is arranged better. It looks like it's a little more verbose. The things are split up so it's easier to comprehend what it's telling you can do instead of having to read a paragraph two or three times and go, huh? Which
Yeah, the layout of the text for sure makes it easier to find the key pieces of information because it isn't just one big paragraph in a block. It's got lists and line breaks, and stuff is sorted and organized and probably consistently located so you know exactly where to look if you're looking for a particular piece of information. It's not just, oh, read a paragraph, parse the paragraph, and then hope you understood the paragraph.
Yeah, and then to add to your gameplay fun, they're also now they've added some diplomatic and expansionist city states. So now you have some people. Yeah, yeah. Do you like city states? Do you want more city states? They ask. Well, yes. So now you have ones that are be at least on the diplomatic ones. You'll be easier to negotiate with them and maybe integrate them into your empire. But then you have the ones that are expansionist, which I'm getting the vibe there that they're actually going to go out there and actually try to get other expand maybe.
Sounded like a nice
Yeah,
vassal.
it's true. Well, let's be friends, and I'm going to let you take the blunt forget the blunt blow from the big sieve next door.
As if I
Yeah,
would
there's
trust that to the AI, but better fighting in their territory than my own, I suppose.
yeah. Let the opposing army go fight them. Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, I'll still be the one killing the army, but I'd rather do it on terrain that's not mine.
yeah. Please don't pillage my stuff.
Yeah.
There has been a pass to. I mean, I don't know if we want to go into big detail with it, but the strategic balance pass. So they
Well,
made
I
some
get where they're
change.
going for with this, and we'll just have to see how the consequences play out. But I mean, they're right. Like if you're building every building in every age without really thinking about it, then maybe making that choice harder makes sense.
Yes, you probably shouldn't be being able to or wanting to build everything all the time.
At least not in every city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unreasonable for you to have every building from an age, but spread around all of your cities. But if you're able to put them all in one city, then clearly there weren't very interesting decisions to be made.
One thing I don't like to see is this creeping and nonsense of tall and wide again. Get that garbage out of your strategic thinking. Those terms are a problem inherently to 4X games, and this still is a 4X game. Like you should want to be larger. You should want to compete for resources. Now, I can understand tuning it so that the rate of returns on conquest is slower. Like it's harder to do or it costs more resources. But maybe that's what they're going for here.
Well, there's also the soft city caps in Civ 7,
Yeah,
so
but they're saying that wide is too strong already. Like it's too much better than tall, and I don't think that's true. Like it should be better to be larger. Period. And it's just a matter of how difficult it is to get larger. Like you shouldn't want to just stay small because if there's incentive to do that, or if doing that is equally effective at expanding, then there's no real incentive to expand beyond just like variety. Like there's no gameplay benefit per se.
with the exceptions of course of there possibly being civs or leaders that specialize in managing smaller empires. Classic example now being Venice in Civ 5.
Even there, though, like you should still want to compete with other nations on the map for resources and victory conditions. Not just victory conditions, but also like the map should matter to you in some way. And if you can play the game being quote unquote tall, where you're barely interacting with the map, and at most you're making trades with other empires, I think that's a problem in a 4X. Like, why even have the diplomacy or the exterminate part of it then?
Well, one of the other potential indirect benefits of the new map generation is that if the maps are not all just generating those big blocky rectangular continents, then that on its own might also create more tension to compete with the other civs for space on the map, because there might be less space to go around, which means closer borders and more conflict over limited space.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there needs to be some balancing just from a standpoint of how quickly do you need to get large to be competitive because the maps themselves are not balanced, and I think it's important that they're not balanced because that creates different scenarios that you have to deal with. And one of the solutions to that always has been conquest in civ games. But either way, like if you start on a peninsula, which is a very realistic thing to happen, I don't like I don't like the notion that this would mean instant game over. Like you lose on spawn. That's stupid. So having some mechanism where you can achieve temporary advantages as a small nation to deal with the situation makes sense. And Civ has had that for a long time through various mechanisms. I just don't like the framing of I'm going to be a tall nation all game or something. Like being a small nation constrained to a peninsula is a problem to solve, not a gameplay style.
Yeah, for all these other little for the tweaking they're making, because there's been some economy changes and building cost changes. It's going to take a while of people playing to really see how that shakes out. So hopefully some of the Civ YouTubers and streamers and stuff come back and do some games under the new patch, and we get to see that better because they're the ones that are their games draw the attention from for Forex to where changes need to be made.
And oh yeah, one thing I glossed over, but they are trying to make yields matter more on the map versus off map, and that is one of their bullet points. That the right now one of the best options for maximizing yields are off map. So this if they change that so that the map matters more, then that will actually increase pressure to compete for resources. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, because they've adjusted some of the base production and things, so they want you to go find the better spots, but also got rid of some of the easily stackable bonuses that we've seen exploited in different videos, so that you're not, as they put it, when you snowball, it should be because of smart decisions, not because of repeated 3% bonuses.
Yeah.
The last big thing in the patch was they've done a brush up on Napoleon. They're like, he's kind of. Everyone's like, he's kind of good, but it could be better. So they gave him boost. The Emperor persona still focuses on sanctioning, but he's got better rewards the more leaders he targets. Revolutionary persona still has the military bonuses, but you get better rewards for being able to go the other leaders to attacking you instead. Unless there's some other details in here somewhere that you guys can see below. There's a couple of things with AI and other things, but I don't know if any of that was big.
I mean,
Do you want to hit just
they updated a bunch of city state bonuses for the existing city states as well, in addition to adding the new city states. I don't think we need to go through all those changes, though. Feel free to look at the patch notes. Um, yeah, I'm trying to look through to see if there's any other. So we got some AI updates.
yeah, that was the ones I did see. Let's see. Find it again.
Looks like a bunch of diplomatic updates to the AI to make the AIs behave more reasonably to particular diplomatic actions.
Oh, it tries to kill weak units. Nice.
Yeah, that's important because that even in Civ 6, sometimes it's like this unit was down to 10 health. Why did you not attack it? Why did you start focusing on a different one? I mean, I'm glad you did, so I can use it to bombard you, but at the same time, dude, human player absolutely would have taken out the weaker unit.
Focus fire for the win.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to say because there are situations where you might do that. For example, if you're on defense and you're trying to prevent an enemy from taking your city, that
You're
unit
gonna
can be used to block because it's such an ineffective attacker at low health, and you would be feeling more threat from a different unit. So you could allow that to live to weaken something else to prevent it from either taking your city or killing one of your units. Uh, and then maybe they can retreat it out and maybe it lives, but maybe they can't, and you can still eventually kill it. So there's nuance there. I do think generally you should try to kill the enemy units,
yes, it's just
but
it was
there are
so
some times where it can be a mistake because it'll either expose your unit, like you kill it by walking into its tile, and now you're a sitting duck in exchange,
yeah.
which isn't great. And sometimes it's not contributing in a way, and nor can it easily move out of the tile because there's so much congestion that you're better off leaving it there. and that's hard to teach an AI
Yeah, I really don't think
on the
the AI is
normal
considering things
circumstances.
like that.
No,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
I mean, a
just
lot of players don't, even if they've played the game for a while. It's not a completely trivial thing to decide what should be attacked as a priority, what shouldn't be attacked, because it actually hurts you to do that on this particular turn in this scenario, and make all your choices optimally in a military setting.
I especially want to focus fire and kill enemy ranged units because a ranged unit can shoot back and not take damage, whereas a damaged melee unit has to expose itself to taking damage in order to deal damage. So it might kill itself on the counter on its own attack if it tries attacking, whereas a
Yeah.
ranged unit can attack at virtually no risk. So I even more highly prioritize taking out ranged units when I can. There's always, of course, exacerbating circumstances. Like if I've just got a bunch of ranged units and one melee unit would just wipe all of them out, then obviously I want to take out that melee unit. But in a lot of cases, I try to go for the ranged units first because of the fact that they can shoot at me without taking damage themselves.
There's
And
also the caveat of leaving range units because they can't take cities. So you might kill the melee units first in that scenario, unless there's a lot of melee.
that's true, but also if there aren't ranged units to bombard the city, then the melee units are going to have a harder time taking it. So there is some
Yeah,
other
that
considerations
depends
as
if you
well.
have walls and what the specifics are there too.
Right, for sure.
Because if the city's in a choke, then a lot of melee can't really attack it, and it's less threatening than if they could, in principle, surround it. Then you really need to deal with them.
I see some notes on some small changes to age transitions, although nothing new about this so-called collapse mode that they were talking
mm,
about with the last patch, and which I think we speculated about in the previous episode or maybe the episode before. No new information about that yet, so I'm assuming they're still working on it, and that it's going to come at some point. I don't know if I would. I don't know. Do you think we would hear from them if they decided to abandon it, or would it just never show up and we would never hear about it again?
I don't know. I don't think they would specifically announce that they formally abandoned it, but it's something like they might be asked in an interview in a year or
yeah.
so, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we
What
tried
happened to
iterations of this, and our internal team was just finding more negatives than positives, so we decided not to implement it or
Well,
something."
I think the bigger thing is we might recall there were like layoffs. I think uh, around the time of our
Oh,
last.
did the people who were working on that, were they part of that? That's
Right.
another question.
So
Yeah, I don't think they would state that publicly. Like, yeah,
no,
we
for
were working on
sure.
No,
this,
no,
but
they're not
a
going to
bunch of
tell us
people got
that.
fired, so we can't implement it.
Right, exactly. So I'm wondering if that's still a thing. I'm hoping it's still a thing. Because I know that the age system was very controversial. Controversial. It was very unpopular with a lot of players. But I also would be very interested in seeing different ideas or interpretations of it to see if there is something that actually is really good and works very well, right? And maybe Collapse would have been that, or maybe not, right? Maybe it would have just also not been very good. But I would like to see this idea be explored before it gets, fully abandoned. So I do hope that they are still working on that. I do hope that that most people still have jobs. uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was a little bit surprised to not hear anything about that, and that is a little bit worrisome.
Well, if it's still a work in progress, it wouldn't make much sense to
Yeah,
announce of
right.
stuff
But
for
yeah,
it.
like I said, it's the combination of there having been layoffs and quote restructuring in the company, and then the complete radio silence about that new feature in the next patch notes was kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah.
Yeah. But we can see they had other things on their plate, like a balance pass and the map generation and things. So it still may be on the menu. It may be like early next year instead, or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like balance changes in UI are much less controversial, and the game does need that stuff, so it makes sense to prioritize it
Yep.
as opposed to adding a new mode.
and obviously the map and UI stuff that they did put it in this patch is really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's gonna take some time for people playing to see how everything shakes out.
Yeah, UI improvements are appreciated. Different map generation algorithm has like
Oh
potential to be
yeah,
relevant even to different games going forward.
yeah, yeah.
So
Those
that's
two things
actually
right
really
there are
interesting
huge.
Yeah,
piece
Yeah.
of
like that's
news.
like innovative.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there were, Civ 7 is not the first game to use that kind of technology. Like I said before, I've seen other games that look a heck of a lot like they're using similar map generation models. Aura, and you had mentioned, was it Dominions?
I don't think Dominions is using that as a model, but it does use non-standard provinces.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the Total War maps were handmade, so I don't think there was any fancy map generation algorithms going on there. And those, of course, aren't procedural maps either, so
Yeah.
they wouldn't need to do that.
No, but this new one, it really looks like it has a lot of potential. That they can also bring in newer map, more diverse map types as we go on, and they will not suffer from that chunks problem that the initial ones did.
And pre-made maps aren't bad either to have as an option, especially for MP. They're always
Oh
nice
yeah,
to have as a
yeah. There's the handmade ones that were, well, partly handmade, but the generation where it's a like a star shape or a snowflake shape because you trying to do an even start for everybody.
yeah. And plus things like that, they make they make things like Navy relevant when they would not be to most procedurally generated maps for most of the game. But when you have stuff like the wheel maps, where water is surrounding the spokes, it all of a sudden Navy matters a great deal because you cannot get stuff to the center if you're being nailed by ships.
Yeah, if somebody sails over from the other side of the map, then oops, you have a problem.
Yeah, plus a significant fraction of your cities will be coastal or
Yes.
influenced by things that can land on your coast immediately. Like the ships can still hit the cities, and then they can land units to threaten the cities. So like you could pretty much die as a consequence of navy, but you can't ignore land either because they can just walk to you as well. So yeah, that's a dynamic that I like. That's almost has to be generated by hand using previous map algorithms. At least maybe now some of these scripts that'll be different.
Oh, I also see, which we almost forgot, tucked way down here at the bottom of the patch notes. There's actually new leader, new civilizations as well. The
Oh, right,
one,
the parts of yeah, because they've
yeah,
done the videos.
right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost forgot
Oops.
Minor
those.
details.
And I'm
Oh,
surprised they would put that way at the bottom of the patch notes and not put that like up near the top, like maybe right after the map generation and the new UI stuff, or maybe even before those things. But yeah, we got a new leader. Let's see if I can pronounce this. Shimibi? I don't know.
like Lakshmibai? We apologize. We are all people who are terrible at not pronouncing
we're we're trying.
European names.
We're trying. Um, but yes, new leader. She's a diplomatic, militaristic leader. Who gets increased influence towards city states. Specifically, it looks like with the incorporate action. So she specializes in annexing city states that are on the map and gaining control of those city states' units. So for the Civ 6 vets, this sounds like it's kind of along the lines of what Hungary was doing in Civ 6. Uh, and then what else? Two new civilizations, the Scylla and Kajar.
Based on a kingdom of ancient Korea.
Yes. So Scylla is ancient Korea. Uh, they are an economic diplomatic civilization that gets bonus culture on resources and has a unique merchant unit that gets a small amount of gold based on your relationship level. So The more trade routes
Mm.
you do with friendly civs, the more money you make.
And the friendlier you make them, the more money you'll make.
Yeah, that's actually a really neat diplomatic
Yeah.
synergy as well, because that really does encourage not only being friendly with civilizations, but getting very friendly. It's not just a matter of get the trade agreements and then we're done. But like you want to really continue developing that relationship. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cool. And then they've got a unique ranged unit, uh, which can move further and has increased attack range. So looks like we've got Civ 7's Longbowman.
Oh boy.
So people have a lot of fun with that, and it counts as a cavalry unit, and also has increased bombard strength. So uh, actually, part longbow, part artillery, and this is an antiquity. Good lord!
Yeah, it says it counts as a cavalry unit too. It's like, wait, what? Just that's what? I
So
guess because it's fast.
let me get this straight in my head. So this is a cavalry unit that is a 3 range bombardment siege weapon. Am I understanding this correctly? That's crazy. In antiquity.
And
Yeah, what's the downside precisely?
I know. I'm trying to figure.
I mean, maybe it's
What's
like vulnerable to being hit itself. So if you can move something into range to shoot it, like an archer, like that'll actually matter.
Well, I mean,
I can't imagine what downside you could have other than that, since it's fast, it shoots further, and it hits cities hard.
well, I don't know how hard it hits city. It might be a very increased bombard strength relative to the unit it replaces. I don't know what it replaced. I haven't played with this civilization yet, so it's listed as a ranged unit, but it has bombard strength. So I'm guessing it has a high ranged attack, but probably a relatively low bombardment strength. The
Well, sure, but if you're
the miss
operating at boosted range and boosted movement speed, you're
right
probably still
the,
threatening
the
the cities.
the Mississippian burning arrow or burning bow unit, which we talked about a lot a couple episodes ago, was kind of similar. It also has a bombard strength, even though it's an archer unit, but it's a really low bombard strength. So like it's very effective at taking out unwalled cities, but once the city has a wall, like you need a proper siege unit. So this could be similar along those lines. But like you said, it's still attacking at range 3, so it's going to be largely invulnerable to counterattack unless you can actually outflank it and get behind Scylla's front line. So that sounds
It's
crazy
not
strong.
just attacking at 3 inch 3; it's faster, so it can position to like fire like
yeah? I
four of
just
these or more at a city at once, and it can do that relatively quickly.
popped up in the preview video to look at it real quick, and yeah, it's a horseback archer unit. I couldn't tell in the animation if that was a crossbow or a regular bow that they were using, but yeah, that's why it counts as cavalry. They are on horseback. So whoa.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
maybe it's good.
and
Maybe that
six.
bombard strength is best against a unit and not as good as against a city.
No, bombard strength is specifically like basically siege. Bombard strength is your combat
Relative to,
strength
oh yeah,
against.
wow.
So there's units in Civ 7 have 3 combat strengths. They have a melee combat strength, a ranged combat strength, and a bombard combat strength. Where melee is against other units. In melee combat, ranged is ranged attack against other units, and bombard is ranged attacks against cities. So yeah, I'll definitely want to log in and play around with that unit. That sounds, and again, in antiquity, like a unit like that in one of the later eras makes a lot more sense because there's a lot more ways of dealing with it. But in antiquity, man, oof.
Yeah, if you can like hit it with artillery or planes, yeah, that's not a not a big deal anymore. But at the start of the game, it is a big deal.
Right, like artillery were crazy strong in Civ 5 and Civ 6, but one of the counterplays to them is you should hopefully also have planes by then, right? So you can hit them.
Well, it would
But
have a small window before planes would turn up.
yeah, there would be. And then the other new civilization is, again, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Qajar. Uh, who are they?
Yeah, 18th century Iran.
Okay, there we go. Another diplomatic There's lots of diplomatic stuff in this update. Diplomatic and expansionist, they get more influence towards supporting diplomatic actions, so that it would be specifically when someone else comes to you with a request for a diplomatic action, you can choose to support it, accept it, or reject it. So it looks like you get a significant discount when you support them and say, yes, we will partner with you and we will do the thing so we both get benefits, as opposed to just accepting it where the other player gets some benefits and you get little to no benefit. And then what else we got? We have a unique commander unit with increased movement and can raise additional districts per turn. That sounds like a fill unit. And then a unique cavalry unit, which has increased combat strength and can heal when in the command radius of the unique commander unit. So,
Ooh, you could pack up a commander and really go running over people.
I wonder, is that passive
Yeah.
healing, or do you actually have to fortify and heal to get the increased healing?
Ooh. Hmm.
Because that makes a difference.
I mean, I wouldn't assume you get healing like, unless it says like beyond the normal means, unless it tells you that you do. So I would take that to mean that you just when you would otherwise heal, you heal more. Especially because it's already getting a lot of other things.
Well, okay. I think that rounds out this patch. Lots of new fun stuff to play around with. New maps, new UI, new leaders, new civs, new range 3 bombardment units.
Also, much diplomacy. Very wow.
In antiquity.
In antiquity, yeah. Unless we're just totally misunderstanding and misreading how that works. That sounds damn.
Yeah, maybe it's ordinarily a range 1, so now it's just range 2.
Maybe,
It's still a good
yeah.
unit, but it's
Maybe.
less like
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I guess I'll have to play it and find out.
yeah.
But little bonus topic for everyone, since we went through that pretty quickly. In addition to Civilization 7 getting a big patch, another game that got a big patch recently, or is about to get one very soon. I'm actually not sure if this has released yet or not. I don't think it has, so it's probably coming out maybe within the next week or two. Ara History Untold is getting a patch or an update that they are actually calling a 2.0 update. So, pretty big deal. And I'm bringing this up because some of the new features that are being added in this patch are things that will be very familiar to people who play Civ games. So they are adding a new culture system where cities generate culture and culture generates influence, which is used to acquire new territory and new cultural traits. So that should sound very familiar to people who play Civ games. They're adding a new agitator unit to, I think, the second act of the game, because that game also is divided up into a 3-act structure, which is basically like a spy, except that you can use it to annex other players' territory into your empire. So that sounds like a very fun and potentially griefing unit to play around with. I don't think we've seen anything quite like that in a Civilization game before, unless Mackie or me and team, you remember anything like that. Has there ever been a unit that you can recall that could actually take other players' territory without having to capture a city?
You had, I think, was it Call to Power that had some spy units that could do similar things to that? It may not be called a spy unit, but it's that kind of an espionage type thing. And there were the diplomats in the older versions of Civ where you could try to convert the cities. Like you could try to, I think you could bribe cities away. I want to say that's Civ 2, maybe.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could basically buy cities using spies and diplomats
Yeah.
in Civ 2.
Similar-ish,
Civ
but they
4
haven't.
also had the spread culture mission, which, if you used
Mm.
it sufficiently, would completely flip the dominant culture in the city, but it would certainly change your borders too.
That's true. Yes, that could actually expand your borders or shrink the other players' borders, and could change tiles. Because that's something that's another one of those things that I've always kind of wanted from a Civ game, but they have not really provided much, which is a way to take territory from another Civ without having to capture cities. And I guess Civ 5 also had those forts that the great generals could build. I'm blanking on what they were called, like bastions or something like that, that would
Yeah,
actually
Civ
act as
4
culture
culture
bombs.
definitely did. Civ
Yeah,
4 culture definitely did what you're describing, where culture generation could push borders one way direction or the
right.
other,
So I guess this
with
is not.
pretty severe consequences militarily.
Yeah, so I guess this is not totally unprecedented, but it is an interesting new um, unit that, like I said, could be very fun to play with and very griefing for the people for whom it is used against. Um, and another big change, which will be familiar to Civilization players, is I think every leader and every civilization in Aura now has its own unique units, whereas previously they didn't all have unique units. I think some had unique buildings and stuff like that in lieu of a unit, but now everybody has their own unique unit, more in line with Civ.
Hmm.
And in addition to all of that stuff, they've like done a bunch of rebalancing. They've upgraded the crafting system. They have also revamped their map generation. Although Aura already had, I thought, pretty good map generation. Um, so they've supposedly fine tuned that a little bit more. They've completely updated that game's UI to make things more readable and more clean and more informative as well. So again, that would be Phil approved. Um, and one of the big things is they upgraded the AI so that the AI is supposedly now more competitive in the acts after the first act. Aura had a big problem where basically once you got past the first act, it was kind of smooth sailing because all of the AIs became pushovers, just because they were really bad at managing the economy and utilizing their militaries in the later acts. So supposedly that is fixed, and the AIs will now be more competitive, or at the very least less uncompetitive, in the mid and late game.
Okay,
Um,
so that's what they meant, because I wasn't sure if they meant that they were just making the AI more effective, or if they were changing the AI so it tries to win the game. Because competitive could be either of those things. But it sounds like it was currently in a state where whether or not it tries to win the game doesn't matter because it wasn't good enough at the game anyway yet. So I guess
correct.
they're just making it better.
Yeah, they were just all around not good. Like I
Yeah.
said, it was is you would get through, you survive the first act, and then it's pretty much smooth sailing from then on. You just coast through the second two acts, and if you were winning in the first act, you'll probably win the game as a whole. But maybe
Yeah, I
not so
guess if you're
much
bad
in.
enough, then it doesn't matter if you're trying to win. But ultimately, both things should be true.
Right. Yeah. So, and I bring this up again, because a lot of people were not happy with Civ 7. So I bring this up for those players who are maybe looking for something else to try. Now might be a very good time, or in the very near future when this patch actually gets released, might be a good time to check out or give a second chance to Aura History Untold. Gosh, is there an actual release date in here? I'm not. It does say now available, so I'm guessing this was released back in September 24th. So I have not had a chance to play it yet. I did play Aura back at the beginning of this year or at the end of last year, and thought it was okay. Not great, but okay. So I might myself revisit it after this, because this all also looks like very good, very promising new stuff. So again, if you are meh about Civ 7 and want something a little different, maybe give Aura a first or second chance. Either of you two have anything else you want to say about that?
Not
No,
for me.
I sort of remember playing, I think, one of the demo versions of that, but it was enjoyable. I was still heavy on Civ 6 at the time, so I didn't give it as much time to play, I guess.
Was there a demo for Aura? I remember there being a demo for Millennia that was very underwhelming.
It was that or as a beta. It's been a while.
Okay. Well, it occurs to me now that I forgot to assign someone to do the outro, so I guess I will take care of that. So thank you, everyone, for listening to PolyCast episode 450, right? 450? My goodness, 450 already. I have been Mega Bears fan, joined as usual by Makalua.
Who now must go find some lunch, too.
And the Me and Team.
I have enjoyed our time on our territory.
Our mutual defensive territory.